heroes of German Riesling allow us to interview and discuss and to taste some of my favorite wines, arguably some of the greatest wines in the German Riesling business. And we would be remiss not to have an opportunity to talk about Selbach Oster. And I'm very pleased to introduce the group here today to Johannes Selbach, owner, winemaker of Selbach Oster, sitting in the town of Schönau at this moment. How are you this morning, Johannes?
Ian, I'm very well. Good morning to Los Angeles, but this is actually good evening on the Mosel. You're getting the evening sun behind me.
That's right.
Yeah, it's still bright outside. It's actually 92 degrees. We're having wonderful weather, dry and warm during the day and cool during the night. And we're looking forward to a very good harvest, which is going to start in about 10 days.
Wow. Yes, it is September 6, 2023, pre 2023 harvest. And we've had a really fantastic run of vintages, and just giving more and more people more and more reasons to think about drinking these great wines. I'd love to go into our slideshow and show people where we're at in our process. We're tasting wines of all different predicates and different quality levels. But I'm always a fan of talking about wines that have incredible complexity, and I am not afraid of residual sugars and ripeness levels. And this wine represents everything that I love about great Riesling, and I think it should be the ambassador for great Riesling. How do you think about that, Johannes?
Make my day. Totally agree. I mean, as you know, and many of you know, Riesling is a grape that it's one of the few grapes that can do all styles from bold and dry to sweet. And the key is balance. The key is great grapes from a great site and somebody who knows what he's doing, and it can make fantastic dry wines. It can make fantastic sweet wines. And the key is balance. And it's the yin and yang of fruit and acidity that make these wines sing and literally also zing. And this is why the sweetness is never a cloying or thick sweetness, but rather a luscious, mouth-watering, like biting into fresh fruit.
This vineyard is the key to this wine. It is in Zelting, is the name of the town, and the vineyard designation is Schönau, yeah?
Sonnenuhr means sundial, and in the old days, the sundials or Sonnenuhr were put in the sunniest spots, because in the old days you either had the church bells or you had a sundial, but nobody had an Apple Watch or a clock, or people just listened to the church bells, or you saw when the sun shone, you could tell the time. That's so they go back a few hundred years. Okay. And when you see a sundial, it was always put up in the sunniest spots. Hence, the vineyards surrounding the sundials were considered the top vineyards.
And before we go and show the map and talk about the detail, what does Auslese mean?
Auslese in German means selective picking. We have a system in Germany whereby we grade the wines according to the ripeness at the time of harvest, and we can make different kinds of wine with different intensity depending on when we pick. So the early harvest would be called Cabernet. It's greenish yellow grapes, and it makes a light wine with very little alcohol and a slightly higher acidity. Then with longer hang time, we have Spätlese or late harvest. So more hang time means more flavor and also more sugar and more potential alcohol. Now, if you go and graze very selectively only the ripest grapes, that's selective picking, and this is in German called Auslese. So for Auslese, you make a visual selection one by one, and you only take the choicest grapes, and you leave the rest for a later picking. And this gives you the most concentrated, most flavorful juice, and that produces fantastic wines, which we ferment in a cooler fermentation to natural sweetness. Natural sweetness means we don't add anything, but we just lower the temperature and the yeast stops fermenting. So you have a combination of brilliant acidity and juicy fruit, all of it with a relatively light package of alcohol. In the case of the wine we taste today, it's only 7.5% alcohol. So they're delicious wines that are dancing and not stumping. They are filigree, and they're wonderful wines to drink by themselves, but also go with very flavorful food.
Let's take a look as we go inside. We're in the Mosel,
Yep.
and we've circled the approximate area that we're visiting.
Yes.
And we're looking at slate hillsides here. Yes.
Correct. The Mosel meanders or winds like a snake through an ancient mountain range, which was formed some 400 million years ago. It's actually a former ocean floor of a shallow tropical sea, and the sediment, which was compressed over millions of years, it looks like a wafer. It was folded up, and because it's brittle, the river could easily cut into it, and that's why we have this valley with a deep valley with steep slopes. And the slopes are exposed because the river has washed away or gnawed away all the fertile soil, and basically there's barren rock, and the roots go into the rock, and this is why we have very low yields, but we have high concentration of flavors, and we get fantastic aromatic expression with a relatively light package of alcohol, which is unique in the world of wines.
Spectacular. So 1661.
Yes, actually, we now have records down to 1600, so it's 2 generations more. But yeah, it's a little over 400 years that we have, shall we say, records of our family being involved in making alcoholic beverages using grapes, actually also shipping wines. And while this may seem like it's old, the region where we are located is a very, very old wine growing region, and many people who have their roots here have been doing it for many, many generations, and we are one of them.
What generations are you in now?
We're probably the 17th. Our son is the 17th generation. We're father, mother, son, actually, at the moment, and a small team who are farming, growing the grapes, making the wines, and also selling them.
Picture of you and your son.
This is father and son, and this is in the Sonnenur vineyards above the River Mosel. And you can see this is the old Roman method of trellising. Because it's so steep and so rocky, you can't put up a modern wire trellis, but you rather ram a very long pole into the ground, which is quite a piece of work, and you train the vine along that long pole so you get enough foliage for photosynthesis. You can find this still in our area in the Mosel River, and if you go to France, you go to the Rhone, you find it in the Côte Rôtie, same system.
Beautiful. Oh, I went the wrong direction. Here's a picture from the top of that vineyard.
This is the very place where the wine comes from that we taste. The first picture, you can see golden grapes. The grapes are very small. The bunches are small. The berries are pea size, so very, very small, thick skin, a lot of seeds, not so much juice, but that means very concentrated juice with a lot of flavor. What you see in front is shimmering like silvery gray. That's what we call Devonian slate. This is the rock that was formed 440 to 400 million years ago and then folded up. And you can see it breaks very easily, and it's a lot of chipped rock, and the roots have a chance to actually wiggle down deep down. And the vineyard below, some of the vines are more than 100 years old, and the root system goes 13 meters. That's almost 40 feet deep into the rock.
Amazing. And you can see how steep that is. Some sites you actually have to enter from the top, kind of come down into them.
And you can see the second picture is looking up, and this vineyard is like what the French call a clos. You see cliffs on top, with a bush hanging over one of the cliffs. And down below, what you can't see, but you see it in the first picture, is the river with a wide water surface which reflects the sunlight into the slope. So it's a heat trap, and it produces fantastic grapes year in, year out. This gives you another angle. We're looking upstream also from the Sonnenuhr vineyard, and you see the village of Wehlen, which also is famous for Wehlener Sonnenuhr, same sundial vineyards in the distance. And the picture to the right is taken from the other, from the other side of the river on into the Sonnenuhr slope. Steep, a lot of outcroppings of rocks, and you're looking at the Rotlei vineyard right here in the middle. You see the cliffs to the right, above, and to the left. That's the place where this wine comes from. Correct, right there.
Spectacular. They look
very
happy.
Very steep, no road access. Everything is done by hand.
How many hectares are under your control?
24 hectares. That's times 2.4, so it's like 55 acres total. And this is a view from the Sonnenuhr slope to the adjacent Schlossberg slope, and you can see our little hometown, the village of Zeltingen. And this is a picture that's taken in about, I would say, the 3rd or 4th week of October. It's just about turning color.
You can see how the shadows and the sun reflection and intensity there.
Yep.
So this wine is one of many that you bottle. How many different bottlings do you make in an average?
Way too many if you ask my wife, but we are, my son and I, and then my late father and I are wine geeks. So we make more than we should, because we think every barrel that's special should get its own bottling. And so we end up making at least 36 different bottlings per year.
Wow. And this in size and scope, it represents a pretty small number of total cases, right?
Yes, total cases, depending on the vintage, oscillates between 14 and 15,000 cases.
Okay, and for the Rotley bottling of Auschwitz, you make that many cases, or that's
on average 100 cases, 100.
That's more like what I thought. Yeah, super teeny, because by the time you get all the way to Auschwitz,
it's very small. Yeah, it's very small. It's very special. It's very limited.
Yeah, beautiful. So we've got a very high selection from a very special vineyard at a very distinctive ripeness level.
Yep.
The grapes get picked. They go into fermentation in is it all foeder, or are you using
for Rotlei? Foeder is the traditional 1,000 liter size, which has been used in the Mosel for centuries, and we still use it. We like the oak; it's old oak, because it permits the wine to breathe. So we have a micro-oxidation, which benefits the wine because we have good acidity, and it in our opinion, it gives the wine complexity. And also micro-oxidation means that the wines are rock solid in the bottle and they don't change much. What we're looking at here with the 2019 vintage, fantastic vintage, the life expectancy of this wine, unless you pull the cork and drink it, is 100 years. So if you forget that bottle in your cellar, your grandchildren will be able to happily enjoy this wine, which will still be alive and well, even say 50, 60, 70 years into the future. What will happen over time is that the wine will taste less sweet, because the sugar goes into esters and tastes less sweet over time.
With the 2019 that we're trying today, and we'll have a very successful tasting, and we probably will use every single bottle of the 19 that we have remaining. We have the 20 now in stock, 21 vintage on its way as well. Can you give me a very high level difference between those three vintages, if any?
19 is, I would say, the ripest and the biggest of the three. 20 is also super ripe. A little, both 19 and 20 more on the plush side, and 21, which was a cooler vintage with a later bud break and a later harvest, is a little, and lean is the wrong word, is a little sleeker and has more pointed acidity, and it has a piquancy that the 20 and the 19 don't have. All three of them are excellent. I would be hard pressed to say which one I prefer. The 19 is probably the most baroque or the most opulent. The 20 is in between the two, and the 21 is the one, if you like acidity, that will be your wine. Needless to say, it's our best vineyard. It's a top vineyard. You've seen the photos. It will always produce excellent wine. So it's just variations of vintage that make a small difference, but the quality, you can never, the vineyard will never let you down, and we will not bottle it if it's not up to snuff.
Well, a spectacular presentation. The audience is going to be thrilled after tasting this. What is the optimal pairing for an Auslese of this caliber?
And I should add, it's Mosel Auslese. Mosel Auslese is the epitome of that category, because we have, shall we say, the longest growing season. We have less heat spikes, so our wines are a little more delicate, have just a tad more acidity, and with that a tad more elegance. And Mosel Auslese is never super sweet, never cloying, so they're actually drinking wines, and you can match them with a wide array of foods. I mean, they're wonderful by themselves, but if you think old hard cheeses like an old Gouda, old Comté, old cheddar, where you have salt crystals and some nuttiness, is perfect with the sweetness of this wine. If you go into blue cheeses, if you like blue cheeses, Humboldt Fog from California, or Roquefort, Gorgonzola, Fourme d'Ambert, fantastic matches. But also meats, cured meats, salt and sweet and vinegar. These are things that pair extremely well with a wine that has good acidity plus also good fruit. And last but not the least, pâtés. If you like pâtés, and it doesn't have to be foie gras, you can have a country pâté using pork or pheasant or chicken or what have you. There is rich flavors, there is fat, and the wine has acidity and it has sweetness, and they can match up to opulent flavors. Same fresh fruit or a fruit tart will work well. It is not a dessert wine. If you have a very sweet dessert, the wine does not have enough sweetness. But mildly sweet desserts like an apple tart or fresh peaches or a peach cobbler, things like this, would also work well. Personally, I love to sip it solo with just maybe a few mac nuts or some very good fruit and nuts. So many things. You could also go with very, very spicy Asian food. The wine has enough flavor to stand up against spice and heat.
Yeah, some nice curry,
Yep.
things like that. And with the category, Auslese, you can have botrytized fruit in small quantities, yes?
Correct. And thank you for bringing this up, because what makes this wine special, and I forgot, I should have said that right from the start. This is not just an Auslese, which means bunch selection, but this is an Auslese from our very best piece of land. And in this case, we make an exception. We don't graze. We pick the whole vineyard in one picking run, and that includes all the grapes, also the greener grapes that are thicker skinned and have a little bit more acidity. And that's why this wine has such almost an electricity between fruit and acidity, because the greener grapes with more acidity are left in the batch and come home with the super ripe grapes. And that also includes some botrytis. If the vintage yielded some botrytis, obviously those are part of the mix. So in the 2019 that we're tasting, there's about, I would say, between 5 and 10% botrytized grapes. In the 20, it's maybe 5% botrytized grapes, and in the 21, it's again 5 to 10%. And the botrytis adds complexity, but it doesn't add honey. It is not a big, rich botrytis, but rather it's a seasoning, not just a flavor.
Complexity. And I'm just overjoyed. You're a fantastic communicator, and really, I wish all producers had the passion that you have and the ability to communicate that. So thank you very much.
You're
This
very
is a
welcome.
spectacular photo. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at actually the Sonnenuhr slope. You see that little triangle in the black triangle in the distance is the ruin of an old castle from the was destroyed in the 1200s and never rebuilt. So it's a big chunk of slate sitting on slate rock, which looms over the vineyards. That's in the Sonnenmoor vineyard, and the view here is beautiful. It's taken from the Schlossberg vineyard. It's a late October morning. You see the morning mist from the river, which actually helps botrytis to develop. And then obviously the church steeple, and it's a beautiful, beautiful scenery. It's an early morning picture. And we're looking east, southeast. This is another picture looking upstream from the Sonnenuhr vineyard towards the village of Grach. And this is a summer photo, and you see it has just a thunderstorm moved through, and the roads are glistening from the rain that made them wet. It's a beautiful picture, and it gives you an impression of how steep the slopes are.
So here's our wine that we're tasting today. We're at around $80 for the 19 vintage. Successive vintages will be a little bit more. 2021 increase in prices with everything that's happening in the world. I would argue this would, as one of the greatest wines of German Riesling, to be one of the greatest, and to be a price point that you could afford to drink on a special occasion is quite a value. And
you won't be disappointed. I promise you that.
Yeah, and it could age, gracefully with you for the rest of your life. So
absolutely,
great
guarantee. Yep,
ambassador.
However, I do recommend pull the cork and enjoy it. Yeah. Nature will provide for more.
You don't want to just be a collector. We want to be consumers, and we will find more occasions. So
I'll drink to that.
Well, pleasure to spend this time with you. So thank you so much, and
thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in Germany.
Please come, and everybody stay healthy, enjoy a good time, have a glass of Riesling once in a while. Cheers.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your time, and thank your son as well. We'll see you on an upcoming tour.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.